He makes the creatures. The creatures don't make him. Starting from scratch, he made the entire human race and made the earth hospitable with plenty of time and space for living. So we could seek after God and not just grope around in the dark, but actually find him. He doesn't play hide and seek with us. He is not remote. He's near. We live and move in him. Can't get away from him. One of the poets said, we're the God created. Well, if we're the God created, it doesn't make a lot of sense to think that we could hire a sculptor to chisel a God out of stone for us, does it? God overlooks it as long as you don't know better. But that time has passed. The unknown is now known. And he's calling for a radical life change. Come on and look at somebody beside you and say, now that I know better. Amen. You may be seated. Look at somebody on the other side and say, now that I know better. Why do so many people want to give advice about things that they don't know anything about? It seems like it's always the person who has no idea what they're talking about that always wants to advise. I know that they mean well, and I know that when they do it, they just want to help. But the truth is that half of the time when we're trying to provide guidance and instruction, we have no idea what we're talking about. Many times we're saying what we've heard or what we've read or what we think should happen without any personal experience upon which to base our recommendation. Let's keep it 100 this morning. People with no kids, or better yet, people with baby kids, always want to provide parenting advice. Those that are overweight like me always come through with some nutrition suggestions. Yeah, I'm preaching truth in here. And I got to hit this one because it's obvious. I got to tell about this one. That one that ain't got no boo always knows any and everything about how you should handle your boo. For some reason, we always want to provide counsel about what we really know nothing about. And the sad part is that half of the time, we really believe the incorrect suggestions that we're given because we don't know any better. We're still trying to fight germs by wearing more clothes instead of using more Clorox because we don't know any better. And we're still thinking that we can eat like we're going to the electric chair, and that if we just drink a whole lot of water, that it'll keep us from getting fatter because we don't know any better. And we are still believing to this day that irregardless is a powerful word to use in an argument because we don't know any better. Sometimes we just don't know. Is it anybody besides me that got into trouble doing what your big cousin told you to do because you didn't know any better? Yeah, Teresa almost killed me with a shotgun. Is there anybody here that thought you could put your money in the bank at 4:30 p.m. so a check wouldn't bounce that night because you didn't know any better? Do I have just one person like me that thought that your first love was going to be your one and only true love simply because you didn't know any better? Yeah, some stuff we just don't know better. And when you don't know, you don't know. But the great American poet and singer and civil rights activist Maya Angelou is given credit for coining a phrase that says, when you know better, you do better. Yeah. When we know better, we know the difference between W-O-N apostrophe T and W-A-N-T. Yeah. When we know better, we stop keeping t-shirts on children until it's 90 degrees outside, because once you take them off, you can't put them back on. Next season, yeah, the old church knows about that. And when we know better, we stop thinking that racism is a thing of the past, because we know that it's alive and doing very well. It's okay if we don't know. It's just a difference when we know. And the same applies to our relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. There was a time for all of us when we didn't know. There was a time for all of us when we were ignorant to his precepts and his expectations. But I came to argue this morning that there must be a difference in us now that we know. And as we wrap up this study of the apostles, I wanted to focus on what I believe are some of the greatest teachings of the Apostle Paul. And here in Acts 17, Paul breaks it all the way down for us. Let me provide some context. The lock there too. Yeah. Can I stop right here? Let me stop right here for just one moment. I want to do a mini sermon, Cindy, in the midst of my regular sermon because it's the same text, it's just a different message. I'm going to title this mini sermon, the title, Leave Your Petty and Find Your Purpose. Yeah. Because sometimes we need to mind our own business and stop wasting time being petty to other people. Because Paul was out there doing what he was called to do. He left their city of Thessalonica and left those people alone and gone on about his business. But here they come following Paul, trying to disrupt his purpose. We spend too much time worrying about what people are doing that has nothing to do with us. And we need to be careful how we go chasing after people that are doing what God has told them to do and not paying us any mind. Can I preach to any Thessalonians we might have in the house today? What we need to be doing is trying to find out what God wants us to do instead of meddling in what God has told somebody else to do. Come on and say, leave your petty and find your purpose. Back to now that I know better. Now that I know better. See, Paul got run out of Thessalonica. He had to flee from those same folks out of Berea. And now today in this text that we just read, Paul has gone to the next city, which is the city of Athens. This is who Paul is talking to. And this is one of Paul's most famous sermons at the council in Athens. This was the high court of Athens. So in this text, Paul is standing before the high court and he's preaching to them because he is deeply disturbed by their idol worship. That's what he found when he got to Athens. And Paul goes on to tell them who God is and how powerful he is, and that these tiny idols cannot compare to the one and only true God. Yeah. And I believe that Paul could preach this message so passionately, Sherelle, because he had already lived it. Yeah. Paul knew what it was like to do wrong until you know better. Right. Paul understood how easily we can mess up when we don't know better. But when God spoke to Paul on the Damascus Road, Miss Hattie, he gained a greater understanding of who God was and of God's power. And God's basic message to Paul, when he raised Paul up, he said, Paul, I need you to do better now that you know better. Yeah. And I want to preach to some people like me this morning that need a reminder of what we must do now that we know better. I just want to give a swift kick in the pants to some people like me that have come into the knowledge of Christ, but that knowledge has not quite yet fully manifested into our daily life. I just want to preach to some people like me that need to hear Paul's sermon in 2018 for a quick refresher on what our life should look like now that we know better. Let me take a minute to use this sermon in Athens to tell us what we must do. Now that we know better, first of all, now that we know better, I must concede to the Creator. Paul said, we are the God created. He said God created the world and everything in it. He created the creatures didn't create him. Paul said he created the entire human race and he created the earth. And to make sure that Paul made God's power clear, Paul said he created it all and he created it from scratch. Yeah. In other words, Paul was asking the people, Tasha, how in the world are you serving some idols when you know good and well that you should be serving the Creator? Yeah. How are you spending your time and your energy on these powerless idols that are unworthy of your attention? He said God overlooked it when we didn't know better. But now that we know he's the Creator, we've got to do better. We've got to concede. We've got to yield. We've got to acknowledge acknowledge and accept the Creator. So I needed a reminder about this same thing, because I find myself just like the people at Athens. I get caught up, Kelly, trying to be my own creator. Yeah. I try and create my own will. I try and create my own plan. And what I end up, Rodney, with is a bunch of idols in my life that don't have the ability to create anything for me in return. Will you softly, very softly and quietly, as not to offend your neighbor, just nudge them very softly and say, stop creating other gods. Yeah, I like how y'all said that real soft, because we do it. We all do it, and it makes no sense. It's crazy because we know better. We know that God is the only one that has the power to construct anything good in our lives. Yet we find ourselves constantly trying to create things rather than let the Creator do what He does best. Let me see if I can make it crystal. Instead of waiting on God to create the best relationship for us, we make them our own selves. Instead of letting God create the best opportunity for us, we kill ourselves trying to make it for ourselves. Rather than letting God create a plan for us, we try and make it for ourselves. And what we end up making is making some idols out of some mess that is unworthy of our attention. This question is just for the honest folks in the house this morning. Is it anybody here that almost ever worshiped a man or a woman? Is it anybody in here that ever bowed down in your character for the sake of a job? Is it anybody in here that ever gave too much time and too much attention to something that you later found out was nothing but a waste of your adoration and your affection? Is it anybody in here, can I make it real simple? Is it anybody in here that ever kept trying to make something out of nothing? Now, I need to ask one more time. I want everybody in here to think back, and let me ask it one more time. Is it anybody in here, because I know I did, that ever kept on and kept on and kept on trying to make something out of nothing? Well, God sent me and Brother Paul here as reminders. He said, I am the Creator. I created it all, and I created it from scratch. In other words, God said, I took nothing and I made everything. So instead of you trying to be creator in your own life, God said, you need to stand down and let me be who I am. Now that you know better, you need to accept the fact that if God does not create it, it is not going to last. God said, if you insist on creating, if you insist on making something, God said, if you just got to make something, why don't you make some changes? God said, if you got to make something, why don't you make some progress? God said, if you got to make something, why don't you make some strides? Why don't you make some improvements? Why don't you make some headway? Why don't you make some steps forward? Why don't you make some enhancements? Because all God wants us to do is let Him be our one and only God, and He'll create everything that we made. Now that you know better, God said, I gotta be the only one. Is it anybody in the house this morning that'll be honest enough to admit that you put some stuff before God? Yeah, we talked about it on Wednesday night. Is it anybody in here that says, I put some people, some places, some things, some objects, some emotions, and some desires before God? Well, God sent me here this morning to tell somebody. He said, from now on, I gotta be the only one. He said, I refuse to keep coming second in your life. God said, if you let me control the potter's wheel, then I can create anything that you need. I need somebody in the house this morning that truly needs something from God. But you know you've already spent too much time trying to create it your own self. Well, God told me to tell somebody this morning that He's about to create something in your life. And He said, what I'm going to create, I'm going to make make it from scratch. I'm not going to take those leftovers you're already working with. I'm not going to take that old mess you've been dealing with a long time. I need you to just high five somebody beside you and say, I need something from scratch. I need God to do a new thing. I need God to create something I never seen before. I'm ready to throw away my whole plan. I'm ready to throw away my whole project. And I want God to make me something from scratch. We are the God created. And if he took nothing and made everything, what makes you think that he can't make what you need in your life? Somebody throw your head back and say, now that I know better, I concede to the Creator. The second point I want to share from Paul's sermon, I'm just reiterating what Paul already preached. The second thing is, when I know better, now that I know better, I got to stop playing hide and seek with God. In verse 27, the Common English Bible says, God made the nation so they would seek him. Perhaps even reach out to him and find him. In fact, God isn't far away from many of us. The Message Bible is what we read, and it says, he doesn't play hide and seek with us. He's not remote, he's near. We live and move in him. We can't get away from him. This Message translation is so true. God doesn't play hide and seek with us. The problem is that we play hide and seek with God. When we need God, we're all up and through in his face. But when it's time for us to work as the hands of God, then the game of hide and seek begins. In the time of trouble, God can't pry us from his side. But when things are going well, we start the hide and seek countdown. Y'all know how we used to do it: 5, 10, 15, 20. 25, y'all didn't count like that behind the scenes. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3. Yeah, as soon as things get good for us, then God's got to start counting to try to find us. The problem is not that God is hiding. Now, the problem is that when it's time for accountability, we're hiding. Paul said he isn't far from us. We live and we move in him. He's never far away. But too often, if God wants anything from us, then he's got to send out a Holy Ghost search party to get us to do what he wants us to do. But now that we know better, it's time for us to end this game of hide and seek with God. Can I just tell you a little secret, Tamara? God already knows all your hiding spots. God already knows where you're trying to get away from him. God told me to ask the people of God this morning. He said, when are you going to start chasing me? When are you going to start running after me? Because for most of us, if God wants us to do something, then God has got to practically run us down with a bus in order to get us to walk in our purpose. Do I have any honest people in the house today that'll say, I know that God's been trying to get me to do something, but I've been playing hide and seek. Do I have any hiders in the house this morning? Now, I just want to deal with the real folks in here that'll say everything that God has tried to get me to do, and I've been hiding, trying not to do what he said. But can I just send a reminder in the house today? When I was in the liquor house, he found me. When I was in the adulterer's house, he found me. When I was in the backsliding house, he found me. So why don't I stop playing hide and seek with God? Because when I needed him, he came and got me where he was. When I told him and he said, and I said, come God, God came on to see about me. Will you high five your neighbor for the second time and say, it's your turn to be it? Yeah, high five somebody on the other side and say, you're it. Because God has been it long enough. God has been chasing us long enough. And now that we know better, somebody needs to tag God out and say, looks it as long as you don't know better. But that time has passed. The unknown is now known. And he's calling for a radical life change. Can I just preach the scripture to you one more time? He said God overlooks it as long as you don't know better. Oh, but that time has passed. Somebody preach to your own self and say it's past time. It's past time for me to make a move. It's past time for me to do what's right. It's past time for me to go back and say I'm sorry. It's past time for me to let some people go. I need some people in the house like me. They say, I know I need to make a change, and it needs to be radical. I can't just ease into it because I've been easing for 10 years now. Oh, but now that I know Jesus, it's time for me to make a radical change. Anybody ready to make a change in this house? Then I dare you to look up towards glory. I dare you to have a conversation with God right in the middle of corporate worship and say, show me what you want me to know. Now I need somebody to get real with God in here. I need somebody to really talk to God. I need somebody that wants to make a change and say, God, I want you to show me exactly what you want me to know. God, I want you to show me exactly what you want me to change. God, I want you to show me exactly what you want me to stop. Because when I know better, I gotta start to do better. Can I tell you one more thing about Paul? Not only did he change his circle, not only did he change his lifestyle, but Paul changed his entire nature. And God told me to tell some people in this house, he don't care who you've always been. He does not care what you've always done. He said, I'm calling for some people in here to change your very nature. I don't care if you've always been nasty. I don't care if you've always been ratchet. I don't care if I've always been a cusser. God said, I want you to change your whole nature. Do I have any people in the house this morning that'll say, I know my nature needs to change. I know my desires need to change. I know my actions need to change. I know my thoughts need to change. I want God to change my whole nature. And I dare you to lift up both your hands and say, I want to be reconstructed. I want God to make me over. I want God to change my thoughts. I want God to change my spirit. I want God to change my soul. I want God to change my mind. Somebody say, I want to be constructed. I want a total nature change. I want to walk like Christ. I want to talk like Christ. I want to love like Christ. And I preach it like the old church would preach it. I want to look at my hands and my hands look new. I want to look at my feet and they do too. Somebody say, Lord, make me over. I need a nature change. Somebody say, Lord, make me over. I need a nature change. Because when I would do good, evil is always present. When I know the right thing to do, I find myself doing wrong. Is that anybody's testimony? Well, all you gotta do is ask him. Because I know God to change people's nature. I've seen him change Jacob. I've seen him change Peter. I've seen him change Paul. And if he can change a trickster, if he can change a cusser, if he can change a killer, then I know he can change me too. Somebody say, Lord, make me over. Oh, Lord, make me over. Now that I know better, I know I gotta do better. But we got to stop pretending.
My God, my God.
Because we know. We teach the word of God here. We got to stop pretending like we don't know what the word of God says. And now that we know better, we got to do better. We don't have an excuse of ignorance. We don't have the excuse of a lack of knowledge. Now that we know better, we got to do better. We got to quit creating all these idols. We got to quit playing hide and seek. Do the work of the Lord. And for some of us, people like me, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. People like me, some of us got to do a radical life change. We got to change how we walk every day.
Every day.
We got to change our conversations. Some of our affiliations are going to have to be changed. We're going to have to make a radical life change. Now that we know better. Now that we know better. We have no excuse. Yep, I know about the grace of God. I know about that. Why would I ask for grace from God when God already showed me the way and I just choose not to do it? Something about that seems unfair to God. Come on, say amen. Amen. Now that I know better, I gotta do better. Come on, look at your neighbor if you're not scared of them. Say, now that you know better, you gotta do better. Now that you know better, you gotta do better. Now that you know better, you gotta do better. Now that I know better, I gotta do better. The doors of the church are open. There's one here today.